Ever wondered why new vehicles seem to be getting more expensive every year? It's a question that's been on many minds lately, especially as the price tags on dealership lots continue to swell. Some people might argue that you're simply paying for quality, that these new models are packed with cutting-edge technology and safety features. But is that the whole story? Consider this. A new vehicle today costs an average of 50% more than it did 20 years ago. That's a steep increase, and it's one that's far outpaced inflation or the average wage growth. And it's not just luxury vehicles but everyday trucks and family cars that are seeing these price hikes. So what's driving this trend? Is it simply a matter of supply and demand, or are there other factors at play? And more importantly, what does this mean for the average buyer? Let's dive into the numbers and see what they reveal. Vehicle prices weren't always as high as they are today. If we take a look back, you'd be surprised at how much more affordable vehicles were, even when adjusted for inflation. Let's take a trip down memory lane. In the 1960s, an average new car cost around $2,500. Fast forward to the 1980s, and the price had doubled to around $5,000. These numbers may not sound like much, but remember, we're talking about the value of money several decades ago. When we adjust for inflation, we find that the average cost of a new car in the 1960s was around $20,000 in today's money. By the 1980s, this figure had risen to approximately $12,000. Still, this seems like a bargain compared to today's prices, doesn't it? Now, let's compare these figures to the present day. Today, the average price of a new vehicle is a staggering $40,000. That's a four-fold increase from the 1980s and double the price of the 1960s, even when we adjust for inflation. The rise in prices isn't uniform across all types of vehicles, though. The price increase is particularly severe when it comes to full-size trucks. In the past, these trucks were the go-to vehicles for the middle class. They were affordable, reliable, and versatile. Today, however, the average price of a new full-size truck is over $50,000, placing them out of reach for many middle-class families. So, what's driving this increase? Several factors are at play, including advancements in technology, increased safety standards, and higher manufacturing costs. However, these factors alone don't explain the steep rise in prices we've seen in recent years. So, it's clear that there's been a significant increase in vehicle prices over the years. The impact of this trend is particularly felt by the middle class, who are increasingly finding it difficult to afford new vehicles, especially full-size trucks. But what does this mean for the average middle-class consumer? Well, the landscape of vehicle ownership has become a challenging terrain for the middle class. As prices of new vehicles, especially full-size American trucks, continue to skyrocket, the middle class is finding itself in a tough spot. You see, the middle class has always been the backbone of the American economy. Traditionally, they've been the proud owners of these full-size trucks, a symbol of practicality and hard work. However, with the rising prices, the reality of owning such vehicles is becoming a distant dream for many. Consider this. The cost of a new vehicle has increased by more than 60% over the past decade. On the other hand, the median income of a middle-class family has seen a much less significant increase. This disparity is creating a widening gap between the dream and reality of owning a new, full-size American truck. The middle class now faces a dilemma. Should they stretch their budget to the limit and invest in a new vehicle? Or should they settle for a used car, which might not meet all their needs but is definitely more affordable? The decision is a tough one, full of compromises and sacrifices, and the impact is not just on the individual or the family. It's a ripple effect that's felt throughout the economy. As the middle class struggles to afford new vehicles, the demand decreases. This, in turn, affects the automobile industry, potentially leading to job losses and economic downturns. But perhaps the most significant impact is on the American dream. The idea that hard work and determination can get you anything you desire, even that shiny new truck, is being eroded. For the middle class, the dream of owning a new vehicle is not just about the vehicle. It's about what the vehicle represents: success, prosperity, and the fulfillment of the American dream. But with the current trends in vehicle prices, for the middle class, the dream of owning a new vehicle seems to be moving further out of reach. But is this just about inflation, or is there more to it? Here's where things get interesting. Beyond the surface-level explanation of inflation, there's a whole host of other factors contributing to the rising vehicle prices. First up, production costs. As the cost of raw materials like steel and aluminum rise, so does the cost to produce vehicles. It's a simple equation, really. Higher input costs equal higher output costs. And when you consider the intricate supply chain that goes into creating a vehicle, a small increase in one area can have significant knock-on effects. Then there's technology. Today's vehicles are like computers on wheels, packed with advanced safety features, infotainment systems, and fuel-efficient engines. All these innovations don't come cheap. They add to the overall cost of the vehicle, but also enhance the driving experience. Finally, we have to consider market dynamics. The demand for vehicles, particularly full-size trucks, is high. And when demand outstrips supply, prices inevitably rise. It's basic economics. So while inflation undoubtedly plays a role, it's not the only culprit. Increased production costs, technological advancements, and market dynamics all have a part to play in the rising prices of vehicles. It's a complex issue, with no easy solutions. Clearly, there's more to the rising vehicle prices than meets the eye. So, are new vehicles really too expensive? As we've journeyed through this discussion, it's become evident that the cost of new vehicles has indeed skyrocketed over the years. This surge in prices has made it increasingly challenging for middle-class households to afford them. We've seen how what was once considered a necessity has now become more of a luxury for many. It's a tough pill to swallow, but the reality is that new vehicles are becoming more of a luxury than a necessity for many.